Hello, welcome to World Report. I'm Jash Hirani. Pakistan's Field Marshal and Army Chief Asim Munir is touring Iran, delivering Donald Trump's peace offer following the first round of Islamabad talks. Trump has even hinted that he might visit Islamabad if a deal is signed there. Amid Iran's announcement of a toll tax on ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz, which the US president called it extortion, and Trump's response of a naval blockade, both sides have softened their stances since the declaration of a 2-week ceasefire. US ships now patrolling the Gulf of Oman evoke memories of British India's long dominance over this very region, the Gulf Sheikdoms and the Persian Gulf, where today's Iran-US conflict unfolds. And these were not just administrative ties between the Asian and the Arabian lands, these ties were also cultural in nature. Let's begin with the cultural ties, moving region by region to trace British India's presence in the Gulf. We will discuss different anecdotes, instances, and facts from the Times correspondent David Holden's visit to Bahrain in 1956, what Lord Curzon, who is famously remembered for partition of Bengal, had to say about Oman, and what Mahatma Gandhi experienced when he stopped at Aden while he was on his way to London for the second roundtable conference. Let's start with David Holden's visit to Bahrain. Holden was a master of Middle East or West Asia affairs and was hired as an assistant correspondent in Washington DC by the Times, a London-based newspaper, in 1955. The next year in 1956, Holden visited the Gulf, attending a Garden Darbar celebration of the appointment of Queen Victoria as the Empress of India, decades after her death and many years after India's independence. Holden predominantly visited 3 Gulf states, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Oman, and observed clear traces of British Raj across the region. After visiting these 3 states, he arrived in Bahrain. In Bahrain, Holden wrote, "The Raj maintains here a slightly phantasmal sway, a situation rich in anomaly and anachronism. The servants are all bearers, the laundryman a dhobi, and the watchman a chowkidar. And on Sundays, the guests are confronted with the ancient and agreeable Anglo-Indian ritual of a mountainous curry lunch." Let me remind you of another not-so-spoken anecdote of the royal family of Oman, where 2 sultans who came to India to pursue their education spoke Urdu more fluently than Arabic. When India's president Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma visited Oman in 1994, Sultan Qaboos bin Said Al Said broke all protocol and climbed the steps of the aircraft to receive the Indian president, greeted him and personally drove him. The Sultan later explained, saying that Dr. Shankar Dayal Sharma had been his teacher. He said, "I studied in Pune and Mr. Shankar Dayal Sharma was my professor. This was my token of respect and regard for my teacher." Qaboos' father, Sultan Said bin Taimur, also pursued his education in India when the British Raj was at its zenith and actively involved in the Gulf. He studied at India's most prestigious institution of those times, Mayo College in Ajmer, and he spoke Urdu more fluently than Arabic. Viceroy Lord Curzon even proposed treating Oman as much a native state of Indian Empire as Lusbela or Kelat, which is present-day Balochistan. Let's now discuss Mahatma Gandhi's visit to Aden, a port city in Yemen. The website of Indian Embassy in Sana'a notes that when Mahatma Gandhi visited Aden in 1931 en route to London's second roundtable conference with Sarojini Naidu and Madan Mohan Malviya, he encountered young Arabs proudly identifying as Indian nationalists. Highlighting the extent of the British presence in the region, Aden's governor put it vividly, "One had an extraordinarily powerful impression that all the clocks here had stopped 70 years ago, when the Raj was at its height, Victoria on the throne, Gilbert and Sullivan a fresh and revolutionary phenomena, and Kipling a dangerous debunker. So strong was the link from Delhi via Hyderabad to the South Arabian shore. Before the dirham, the Indian rupee was Dubai's official currency. The Indian rupee continued to circulate in Dubai well into the mid-20th century, even after the administrative changes began. Let's now discuss British India's strong administrative dominance in the Gulf region. British officials in the Gulf reported to Delhi, not London, and large parts of today's Gulf were once administered through India. The standard list of British India's semi-independent princely states like Jaipur started alphabetically with Abu Dhabi. Author Sam Dalrymple in his 2025 book The Shattered Lands observes, as recently as 1928, a vast swath of Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Burma, Nepal, Bhutan, Yemen, Oman, the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait were bound together under a single imperial banner, an entity known officially as the Indian Empire or more simply as the Raj. Territories in the shape of a crescent stretching from Aden, that is today's Yemen, to Kuwait fell under British India's jurisdiction. The Bombay Presidency managed sea trade, customs and security across the Gulf. The 1869 opening of the Suez Canal amplified the region's strategic value by reducing shipping times between London and Delhi. Historian Guillemette Crozet, in Inventing the Middle East, Britain and the Persian Gulf in the Age of Global Imperialism, explains that the British feared rival powers might block their route to India. Initially the French, after Napoleon's 1798 invasion of Egypt, and later the Russians and Germans. In response, they turned the Gulf into a strategic buffer and integrated it what they saw as British India's extended neighborhood. When the British expanded their influence in the Gulf for strategic, economical and geopolitical reasons, they did not do so through direct colonization, but through a system of protection treaties. Territories bound by these treaties were officially part of India under the Interpretation Act of 1889. Dalrymple adds in his book, they were run by the Indian Political Service, defended by the Indian Army and subservient to the Viceroy of India. He explains that the Arab states bordering the Ottoman Empire were usually left off the imperial maps altogether to avoid aggravating Constantinople. He notes that these states were notably absent from the British maps at the time, a fact widely commented upon, and refers to a Royal Asiatic Society lecturer who reportedly joked, as a jealous sheikh wails his favorite wife, so the British authorities shroud conditions in the Arab states in such thick mystery that ill-disposed propagandists might almost be excused for thinking that something dreadful is going on there. For our viewers' context, the Indian Political Service was a government department in the British Indian administration meant to manage relations between the Crown and the princely states. Historian James Onley, in The Arabian Frontier of the British Raj, details how between 1797 and 1819, the British were concerned about the Arab maritime raiders based on the pirate coast, that is today's UAE Gulf shore. I'll share a key anecdote about a British raid on the Qawasim tribe sparked by a Bombay trader's letter in the later part of the video. As late as March 1947, the Persian Gulf Residency operated under the Indian Political Service. This residency was responsible for maintaining Britain's influence across many Persian Gulf states. It was closed in 1971 when British exited the region. Now you might be surprised to know that Gulf states could have actually have joined India or Pakistan after the British left South Asia. But they did not. Let me explain how. In 1937, the British sensed they were losing their grip on India. Mahatma Gandhi was gaining popularity and leading the Indian freedom struggle, and the sentiment in India suggested that independence was near. Additionally, the British faced mounting pressure from World War II and the rise of the Nazis in Europe. Thus, they decided to redraw their administrative boundaries on both sides of the Indian subcontinent. On April 1, 1937, the British India separated several territories, replacing Indian officers with British officers who would now report directly to London, not Delhi. One such territory was on the Eastern Front, Myanmar or Burma as it was called, and on the Western Front, the key territory concerning us currently is Aden, the port city of Yemen. King George VI read out a telegram message. Aden has been an integral part of British Indian administration for nearly 100 years. That political association with my Indian empire will now be broken and Aden will take its place in my colonial empire. While Aden was separated, other states remained under the purview of the British Raj for another decade until April 1, 1947. Debates took place on whether the Gulf states should be governed by India or Pakistan. During these discussions, British lawmakers concluded that neither independent India or Pakistan could govern the Gulf. Dalrymple cites Gulf resident William Hay. When the British decided to transfer power in India, it would clearly have been inappropriate to hand over responsibility for dealing with the Gulf Arabs to Indians or Pakistanis. Before the partition plan that would divide the Indian subcontinent and would create a Hindu-dominated India and a Muslim-dominated Pakistan was announced, something happened on April 1, 1947. The Persian Gulf Residency was separated from India. Indian political service officers and soldiers withdrew immediately and unceremoniously, replaced by British personnel. From then on, the Foreign Office in London assumed the responsibility for the Gulf region. Had this administrative transfer not taken place, it is quite possible that the oil-rich Gulf states might have ended up with India or Pakistan. The British continued in the Gulf until 1971. Now, let's discuss the Qawasim anecdote and the signing of the General Maritime Treaty of 1820. I have taken this story from the scroll, so thanks to scroll. In a letter dated Feb 5, 1817, a British merchant from Bombay named Shivji Govindji complained to British authorities that his ship had been seized near Lakhpat in Gujarat by 4 vessels belonging to the Qawasim. Govindji said he had incurred massive losses of crew and cargo due to these raids. As a subject dwelling under the British protection and colours, the Bombay merchant appealed to the authorities for assistance. Bombay officials seized the moment. In December 1819, with Oman's help, Britain dispatched a force crushing the Qawasim, seizing their fleet and occupying Ras Al Khaimah. Following the raid, the General Maritime Treaty was signed on Jan 8, 1820 in English and Arabic, with more signatories joining soon after. The first article states, "There shall be a cessation of plunder and piracy by land and sea on the part of the Arabs, who are parties to this contract forever." Labeling Qawasim actions as piracy, it maintained registers, port clearances, and a red-white flag of friendly Arabs for compliant vessels. These ships could then enter into all the British ports and into the ports of its allies of the British, and they shall buy and sell therein. So to conclude, this history underscores how the Persian Gulf was once an extension of the British India, a unified imperial space of trade, security and culture. Today's US naval presence, Iran's Hormuz maneuvers and Trump's blockade threats mirror those old struggles of maritime control, from Qawasim piracy to Suez safeguards. As Asim Munir shuttles peace offers and ceasefires hold tentatively, the Gulf remains a choke point where great powers clash and where India's historical shadow lingers in rupee's echo and cultural remnants. That's all for today's World Report. Till I see you next time, that's this Saturday at 8 p.m. Thanks for watching.